Hey guys, hey guys, we're back here with a new episode of the Nailing History podcast. This is your host, Matt and Jon here. Jon, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Had a great walk this morning. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear on your end. Yeah, doing really good. Had a nice walk this morning. Sunday stroll. And, Sorry?
What did you think about?
Oh, I was just thinking I was going to talk about this week in history. I was really excited. Got a few big time ones. Probably the biggest week I think I've done so far. I'd say so.
I was struggling to find anything, so that's pretty interesting.
Really? No, I was thinking I got three, and they're each in different teaser. They're each in different centuries, and so yeah, I'll try to link them all together in some weird way. But how have you been? I see you got new equipment. I see you got the old Don Imus.
I don't know if you guys can tell from the great audio quality, but I picked up a new mic. I upgraded my system. I upgraded my equipment here. Yeah, I don't know. I was having a rough week last week, so, as people do, I just spent some money irresponsibly to make myself feel better. It didn't really work, but at least I have a new mic system, and now I have a extra setup. There's been some talk of some guests coming in on the show, maybe stopping in the studio. So I wanted to make sure, part of it was I wanted to make sure that I had the equipment ready for them so we weren't sharing a mic. And then I figured, Jon, when you're in town, I don't have to stress about you forgetting anything. I got the setup here ready to go, so we don't have to worry about that.
Forward.
And look at this. I can sit back, get the mic there, just relax. Just
dude, you got a Shure. You got Shure? That's like, aren't they like one of the top
of the line? Top of the line for a top of the line podcast. You know?
Oh my God. Fans, this is like imagine like a Rush Limbaugh, Don Imus like microphone. Like basically he's got what Howard Stern would use.
Should I take a picture so we can tweet it?
I think we should, of your setup. I mean, I could send you. I sent you a picture of my setup, and then we can send a picture of your setup, and maybe we can take a poll.
Well, why don't I just take a picture right here?
Oh, of us?
A little squad shot.
So we are putting ourselves out there.
No, I can cut you out if you want.
I was just thinking the actual setup. We could be like a Daft Punk thing, like they never see our faces, but they only see they can see our equipment.
We should wear ex-president masks, maybe.
They make one of John Tyler?
What's that?
They make one of John Tyler?
I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah,
so I'm ready to go. I think this going on. How was your conversation with Comcast this week?
I'm not gonna lie to you as the co-host of this.
You don't have
fantastic
to. I didn't even
show.
have to ask. I didn't even have to ask.
Well, how does it sound? How does it sound?
It sounds fine.
Well, I got an Ethernet cable into the extender, and I'm upstairs. I've been using this Ethernet cable now for about a week with my regular computer. It's giving me no trouble. I can hear myself well. You're not breaking up. We're back. Okay. We're back to basics.
Good. Yeah, we'll see. You're back in your lair. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes this episode. I thought maybe you would have done something. I mean, I bought a whole new microphone and setup to make sure we accommodate any guests that come through, and all you needed to do is pick up the phone and talk to somebody at Comcast, but that's fine.
You really think I'd get through to them?
You could even chat with them on their website, I think. I don't even know if you necessarily have to call them.
If I wanted to chat with an AI, I'd just talk to ChatGPT. I can ask them anything I want.
I'll just keep bumping up the quality on my end, and you can just stay where you're at.
Just leave me in the dust. Just leaving me in the dust.
Last week I had to get fingerprints. Change the subject because it just makes me so angry that you didn't call Comcast. But I expected it. But anyway, this week I was getting fingerprinted for clearance checks to work on school districts.
Okay.
And every time I get fingerprints, I get complimented constantly about how great my fingerprints are. they're clear, they have cool designs, because it's all a computer system, and like it has to accept your fingerprints. Like you're putting it on this glass, and it's not ink. You know, you put it on this glass, and you do the fingerprints, and it makes an image. And literally every time I go, they say, these are the best fingerprints I've ever seen. This is the quickest we've gone through this process because of how clear your fingerprints are. So I always,
Interesting.
which is pretty cool. It's a pretty good ego boost for me.
Are they kind of deep?
I wish I could go every week. I guess they're deep, or they have cool swirly stuff. I don't know. They're the cool swirly designs. I always make the joke when I'm there. I'm like, oh well, I guess can't commit any crimes, can I?
Yeah, really. They'll know you. Find you out in a heartbeat.
They'll know me right away. I'm probably, and then also I make the joke. I guess I've never worked a day in my life. I have soft hands, so I don't know. That was a cool little fun activity I did this week. It's always fun to do. I do it every year. I actually did it twice this year. And literally every time I go, I get complimented on my fingerprints. I bet your prints are jacked up.
You think so? Well, maybe we'll go one day. Maybe we'll do a live from.
I was thinking after our conversation last week, I was thinking next time you go to give blood, why don't you ask the people if we can do a podcast? We can broadcast our podcast while we're giving blood. What do you think about that? You can do a 3 hour. How long does it take?
It's about 3 hours, about 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on what they're doing.
We could do a 3 hour marathon and see who's quicker, who draws blood quicker.
Well, it depends on if you get the
heart, I guess.
Depends if you do it, because I think I do every other one time. One time I take platelets, next time it's plasma and platelets, and that's usually a little faster. But we'd have to make sure that we're on the same procedure. I don't want us going there and they're like, yeah, you're not qualified. And the next thing you know, you're just donating whole blood and you're in and out in 10 minutes. Because that's...
Why wouldn't I be qualified?
I don't know. You might not have enough. I had to get recruited.
I could do it.
Well, maybe I'm not going to question your fingerprint game, but I don't know. I got to see the proof in the pudding, as they say.
I don't even know
on the blood tray.
All right, you want to get into it?
Let's do it.
This weekend history. This week in history. This week in history. This week in history. This week in history. All right. What'd you think?
So it begins. I only heard your voice, did not hear the music. I'm assuming that was you were playing to a music track.
Yeah, it's a good track. Yeah, it's a good track. I recorded.
So I look forward to hearing that.
I recorded it all myself yesterday.
Even the audio, even the
music. Yep.
Okay, well, maybe we'll see. You can get it on Spotify. Maybe that alone can be its own.
Well, it's to the tune of "No
track.
Sleep Till Brooklyn" by the Beastie Boys.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. I'll have to wait to hear the music.
It might need a little work, but by the time I got at least all the instruments down and the vocals in, I realized that the timing was a bit off. It was the first time I ever did it. I never did all instruments before. I had my phone doing the drums, like with the GarageBand app on my phone, and then I bought something along with this microphone setup. I bought a cord that I'm able to plug my electric guitar right into the board, so I can record through that, which is pretty cool. I have my effects pedal. I was having some fun yesterday
with the podcasting gear. Dang.
Yeah, well, I figure if this podcast doesn't work out, I can always use all this equipment for, recording an album of something.
Oh man. Move over, Rolling Stones mobile unit. Here comes the next latest and greatest in audio technology. Since you put all that effort in, I think at the very least I can defer to you to begin this week in history.
I'll be honest with you. I had a couple that I'm just going to go with one, and it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but I'm going to try to make it as funny as I can and as different as I can.
Okay, go ahead.
You good?
I'm good.
I got the architect of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann, was hanged in Israel May 31st, 1962.
Okay. I know there was a big trial for him, right?
Yeah,
that was like the trial of the century.
So the thing that's interesting about this guy, there's a couple things. So he was basically the guy who was kind of in charge of like organizing the whole thing, organizing the transportation, setting up, just the logistics. He was like the logistics guy of the Holocaust. He was in the SS, and yeah, he was a pretty bad dude, obviously, and kind of traveled from camp to camp and make sure it was like he was just like, yeah, he was like the logistics guy, like the COO, as you would say, Chief Operations Officer of the Holocaust.
Okay.
And not sure what his salary was. Hopefully it wasn't as much as salary for the person, the Red Cross. But so after the war, he had escaped, as most of them did. He was able to escape, and he wound up in Argentina. And in 1960, so like he got then the Mossad was after him, the Israel intelligence force. They were after him for forever, trying to find him, and they got informed in 1957 that he was there, and then they sent some intelligence people over there to make sure that it was him, and they did all this stuff, and so they went in covert operation into Argentina to get this guy because they felt that Argentina wasn't going to deport him.
Right.
Or what's the word?
Expatriate. Expatriate.
Yeah. Or whatever, would send him away. And then back to Israel for trial. So they sent him over there. They went on the 150th anniversary of the revolution against Spain in May 1960 as a way to kind of hide and think that so there were so many tourists around, they figured they'd be able to get in and out of there without being found. They freaking catch him, they abduct him, they have him trapped in they put him in a basement, they had him sign something saying that he agreed to go to trial in Israel, which is a whole nother thing because they didn't think like that was they didn't know if
did they have jurisdiction over it.
Yeah, they had jurisdiction. Yeah, like this was like an illegal kidnapping,
right?
Like the Mossad
yeah, of course,
doing, right?
Yeah.
So they take him, and then to get him on the airplane, they shoot him up with some drugs, make him feel like, to make him look like he's sick, dress him up as like officer, like Israeli officers, I guess, to make it seem like he wasn't, like they totally snuck him out of there, and they said, oh, he's sick, we're helping him on board. They get him on the plane, put him to bed, he sleeps, he wakes up in Tel Aviv. That sucks.
Whoops.
So then as John said, there's this whole trial, and like I had seen other stuff about this. These trials for these ex-Nazis are intense. So like there was another guy, there's a pretty good documentary on Netflix, and it came out a couple years ago. I think it was called The Devil Next Door. And it was about a guy, a Ukrainian nationalist who lived in Cleveland, who was in like the 90s, I think it was. He was accused of being like one of the most like notoriously harsh Nazi prison camp guards, Ivan the Terrible.
Okay.
But he lived his whole life undercover, but he was saying it wasn't him. And they extradited him back to Israel, and he stood trial there. And I think they found him guilty or whatever. But like when you hear about these trials, it's crazy, and it's kind of nice to see these Nazis getting freaking put under the gun with these prosecutors. I mean, they go up there and they're like, this guy. So Adolf Eichmann, I'll get off of the guy from Cleveland. You guys should check that documentary out. It's pretty crazy because like he never admitted to being that guy. So, but I think he was executed anyway or died in prison or something. But Adolf Eichmann admitted to being Adolf Eichmann. So they knew it was he admitted it was he was there. He admitted that he was involved, but he was like, hey, I was just following orders. Like, he's just like, I don't know, I didn't know what was going on. He's like, I saw the death camps, but I didn't know the gas chamber. I didn't know that the gas chambers were going on. I just thought, I didn't know what was happening. I was just setting up transportation. Like, he's like, I was setting up the trains to take
I'm just a logistics
people
guy.
around, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what was on the trains.
Yeah.
And these guys these guys are just like it was obviously heated, and they were asking it. The one thing that so that was his whole thing. Like, I didn't have anything to do with it. Blah blah blah. He was like, Himmler was telling me what to do and all this nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And the Israelis were not having it. They were grilling him, and they had some people. It's intense. Like, if you ever listen to the Nuremberg trials, or even the trial of that Ivan the Terrible guy, when you hear the survivors of the Holocaust talk about what happened, it's like, it's intense. And so this is 1960. This is only, 16 years after. So the memories were still pretty fresh, and you hear some pretty intense stuff, and it's nice, and I'm sure a little cathartic for these survivors to be able to confront one of the biggest, perpetrators of the Holocaust. But you hear some of this stuff, and it's intense. He showed no emotion the whole time, real bozo. But the one thing that towards the end of the trial, when he really showed his true colors, it seemed like the Israelis were saying, "Do you think that these people who were running the gas chambers were criminals?" And this guy refused to say that they were he thought that they were criminals. He just said he said, like, I don't know what I would have done if I had those orders. I can't comment on what they
dumb
what they thought, what their intentions were. Because he's like, when you don't know until you're in that position, which is something to think about. It's kind of like, yeah, if you are found in that situation, you're just being told what to do. You're a soldier. Like, is that a defense? I don't know. I don't think so. You have to have some kind of ethic backbone, some moral backbone.
Are you talking about Eichmann or the guy, that Ukrainian nationalist guy?
Eichmann
was like that. Okay.
Yeah, that's what Eichmann was like. Eichmann was somewhat taking the heat for it, but anyway, he obviously was found guilty on like 8 charges, because I think they charged him for each country that he committed these things in. I mean, they talked about, before the death camps, before the concentration camps, they had like mobile gas chambers, like, gas chamber vans. And it had just been going on for way before the actual like death camps, which was, I didn't know that. And
I knew they had trucks. I know when I was in Belgrade, I learned a little bit about Jews, Serbs, and Gypsies. Jews were what everyone knows were the primary targets, but also Serbs and other Slavic people and Roma were also targeted. I know that was there. They were saying, they literally would just put a bunch of people in a truck, and then they would just have the exhaust fumes feed back into the bed of the truck, and then they would just all basically suffocate.
That's what they would do.
Yeah, that was like one of the earlier kind of rudimentary ways of doing it. But
it's
horrible.
But then there were some Jewish like community leaders who would sell out the rest of their town, like organize the people getting shipped out to save themselves. And
I had to read a book about that in college.
To be alive.
Yeah, read a book
tough
in college.
Time to be alive.
Neighbors.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that, must have been like a complete freaking nightmare situation for years. And then I think about the Nazis, and like when they're doing that, and they're like doing all this really high crime stuff, trying to exterminate an entire race, the European Jews. And like, I guess they thought they were going to win the war, but like at the same time, wouldn't you think in your back of your mind, like, man, we are going to get in so much trouble for this
if we don't pull this off? Yeah,
like that's high. I mean, sheesh, because like they were, it was ruthless. And but anyway, Adolf Eichmann. I think it's Eichmann or Eichmann. You'd say Eichmann, but from the audio that I've heard of the trial and everything, it might be pronounced Eichmann. They've got to be the biggest a-holes in the last, I don't know, 500 years.
It's arguable. I mean, I will say, I think the communist of the 20s and 30s, you'd certainly be right up there. They just weren't as in your face. I mean, the Nazis had a scapegoat. They told you what they wanted. We want to eradicate the problem, and they thought the problem was the Jews. Whereas a Stalin or Bloody Felix, who was the leader of the Cheka, which was the precursor to the KGB, I mean, these guys were just indiscriminate on why they would choose to kill 1 million people. I mean, it could just be because you fell out of favor, basically. And they were just never talked about it. I mean, and even during the war, there was one point when the leader of the Yugoslav partisans, Josip Broz Tito, he kind of, at one point the Nazis tried to hunt him down, but then he kind of fell out of favor with Stalin, and then Stalin had to send his people. And yeah, it's close. The Nazis, obviously, because we fought the war against the Nazis, and the Soviets were actually technically on our side during World War II. But I think it's close. The communist of Soviet Union and early communism, during the Russian Civil War, and
Bill Burr does a pretty good bit about that, where Stalin was
everyone
talks about Hitler, but Stalin was the real all-star of genocide.
He was batting 300, and then Mao Zedong was batting 600. It's dude killed 100 million people, and
yeah.
I think a lot of that does go to say because we didn't fight active wars against them. I think that's the truth. If you're not actually sending your men to go and fight this group, I mean, if we had a hot war with the Soviet Union or China, I think we'd have a different understanding on who we think is the most evil if we're trying to score them. But I think because we actually fought the Nazis and, we had American troops die fighting them. But I don't even think we think of the Japanese in as bad of terms. And I mean, they did some horrible things.
I don't get that, yeah.
Okay, well, is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay, I'll go century to century. So, on this day, concluded a 55-day siege of the Byzantine capital of Constantinople.
That was the fall of the Ottoman Empire, right?
Fall of the Byzantine Empire.
Oh.
So on May 29th, 1453, the Ottoman army finally overwhelmed Constantinople's defenses and ending over 1,000 years of the Byzantine Empire, which is actually also they would consider themselves Roman. So in 1453, the Roman Empire officially ceased to exist.
You ever think about how young America is compared to these empires that have already ended? So you think about that lasted 1,000 years.
Yeah,
America's only 250 years old.
Yeah,
almost. Yeah, I mean, you kind of live your life thinking that the U.S. is going to just be forever because it's the greatest country ever, but it's pretty young still.
It's pretty young.
A lot of stuff can happen.
I mean,
which is crazy.
Yeah, the Byzantine Empire, I just think, I know I vaguely were learning about I learned a little bit about it in school, but not a lot. I think a lot of our teaching was kind of Rome ended because the Vandals came in, or the barbarians sacked Rome, and then the Roman Empire was over. But that's actually not really true. The Roman Empire split at the end of the 4th century. Emperor Constantine, who actually was the first who actually initiated Christianity into the Roman Empire, he made his capital Constantinople, and then 30 years later, the Emperor Diocletian split. You had the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. And for all intents and purposes, those in the East saw themselves as Roman. I mean, they spoke Greek. They didn't speak Latin. They spoke Greek. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, Rome hung around for another 1,000 years. And they in the 7th, 8th century, while Western Europe was going through the Dark Ages, I mean, these guys were the top. They were the top empire in all of Europe, and they probably had a similar feeling, these are great times, we're on top.
Yeah.
And, 600 years later, they're getting conquered by somebody else. It's just
that's what I'm saying. It's think about the history of the world. I mean, we're not even close to a blip on that.
Yeah,
the U.S.
Yeah,
hard to really wrap your head around. But then just don't think about it. Kind of I don't like thinking about how big space is.
Just unsettles
me
you,
out.
unnerves you
A little bit, yeah.
Just like, ooh, can't sleep. Not going to be able to sleep tonight if I think about that one.
So
So yeah,
you might think about what's the point in,
yeah.
going to work every day if the Byzantine Empire ended. Who's to say that?
What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
So yeah, well,
that'll be my reason for retirement. What's the point? The Byzantine Empire ended in 1450 whatever, so it could happen here too. Whatever. I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the time here.
it's gonna ride out into the sunset. So yeah, the immediate aftermath. So basically, for all intents and purposes, the Byzantine Empire, they were kind of like the gatekeeper, you might say, from the Muslims coming into Europe. They were a Christian empire. They kind of held Islam at bay for a number of centuries. It was besieged. Constantinople, the city itself, was besieged a number of times. It was only sacked once, but that actually happened by the Crusaders. And that was partly in retribution for a massacre of like Venetian merchants who were Catholic, Roman Catholic. Byzantine were Orthodox Christian, and they had it because we had the Great Schism in the 1054. And so that was kind of a thing that was still sitting on well. So when the Turks actually took over Constantinople in 1453, the Byzantine Empire looked west to the Pope and saying, hey, like, I know we have our like a 400-year beef going on here, but like, can you help us out? And then they kind of underestimated how little power the Pope had compared to previous centuries in terms of like pulling up an army together. Like it wasn't the 1100s where, Pope puts out a call for a crusade and you amass armies from all these different places and go fight in the Holy Land. It's kind of a different situation in 1453. And so, yeah, there were some people stressed about it, some people worried about it, but for the most part, a lot of Western Europe just kind of got on with it. And yeah, it wasn't until the Battle of Vienna, I think a couple centuries later, that like the immediate threat of the Muslims taking over all of Western Europe was really kind of had started to subside. But yeah, certainly prolific. I mean, yeah, Rome officially, the Roman Empire ended in 1453. So it's, the most successful empire, arguably, the world's ever seen. We'll see if the U.S. empire can hold its own against that. We'll see. Check back on this podcast in 1,000 years. And last but not least, I'm surprised you didn't find this one. But then again, I read a book on this once. And so it caught my eye. In 1908, May 26, 1908, the discovery of oil in the Middle East was made.
Why would I have come across that?
I don't know. It's probably one of the most important things of the past 150 years in world history. I mean, we're conversing right now. All the plastics around, the cars we drive. I mean, yeah. Middle Eastern, the discovery of Middle Eastern oil, certainly even from a geopolitical standpoint, just petrodollars, and it was important, I would say.
Yeah. Well, how was it found?
So
somebody just digging a ditch.
No,
ditch digger.
Kind of run around. So in 1901,
dude, we do work every time. Like when I work with drilling, I do a lot of drilling for work. I mean, I personally don't do it, but we do drilling for certain applications of what I do for a living. And every time we do it and somebody new is watching what we do, I get the, what happens if you strike oil? I'm like, oh, I guess so, yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, I wish, right? And then I go on my way every time. It never fails to happen. I'm like, well, we're not. It's like,
I bet you that's what was happening to Mr. George Bernard Reynolds when he was poking around out there in Iran in 1908. People were asking him, what are you doing out there? You looking for oil? I wish. So that's basically what happened.
Hey, what are you doing? Yeah, or was he going out hunting for some food and shot in the ground, and up from the ground came a bubbling crude?
Just got lucky.
Oil, no, that is. That's the Beverly Hillbillies theme song.
What?
You ever hear the Beverly Hillbillies theme song?
No.
Oh shoot, I don't know how it starts. Hold on. It's about do you know the Beverly Hillbillies?
I've heard of it, but
you've never watched it?
No. The
Are you
movie?
serious?
The
No.
movie?
Let me sing this for you real quick. Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer, barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the crown came a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. Kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said California's the place you ought to be, so they loaded up their truck and moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars. Y'all come back now, you hear? You never heard that?
I heard that last part, the last line. I know that.
I can't believe you never heard that theme song.
I know about Spindletop. I read a book. I read about Spindletop, the discovery of oil in Texas.
Well,
a little before
did they
the
talk
state.
Did they talk about Jed Clampett shooting at some food?
I don't know if he made it.
I wonder why they. I mean, it's a fun. It's actually a pretty good concept for a show. Like if you've never watched it, you know these hillbillies from like, I guess Texas, which is maybe not Texas. I always thought like West Virginia, like real backwoodsy people.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's any. I don't know. I guess maybe it'd be funny if they were. They should do that with like fracking now. It'd be funny. Like you were shooting at like some guy was hunting and then some natural gas started coming up out of the ground and he moved. I don't know, where would you move now? But yeah, I guess it's funny. Like so they move. So they get rich just from this one. You know, finding oil in their land, and they're in Beverly Hills and they don't know the culture at all. And it's
right.
It is actually kind of funny.
Well, I hope that happens to you one day at work. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll have a little song written about you. And then you can write it with your new equipment. With all this equipment you got. And you'll be able to write your own theme song. But no, I mean, man. it was Spindletop.
Well, how did he come across it?
I was going to get there, but we started talking about Beverly Hillbillies. So in 1901, so at this point, 1901, you have Standard Oil. Like, there's oil deposits throughout the world, right? Like, only months earlier, before these guys struck, Spindletop in Texas was found, which was the first big oil gusher in Texas. But you had, Pennsylvania's where Standard Oil got their start, and in places like the Caucasus, in modern Georgia, out there was oil there. In Baku on the Caspian Sea, there was oil there for a couple centuries. People knew it was there, even I think even Malaysia. But yeah, nothing in the Middle East yet. And so, but people knew that there could be oil in places. But in order to get, so this guy, William Knox Darcy, he was a millionaire London socialite. He managed to get an oil concession from Muzaffar al-Din Shah Qajar of Persia. So basically, he got permission from the Shah of Persia to go snooping around Iran looking for oil. And he had exclusive rights to prospect for oil for 60 years in a vast tract of territory, including most of Persia. In exchange, the Shah would receive 20,000 pounds, or 2.7 million pounds today, and a promise of 16% of future profits. So that was the incentive for why they let this Brit come in and snoop around, because he would get some money off of it if they did find any oil. And so this guy, Darcy, William Knox Darcy, he had to hire a geologist, an engineer by the name of George Bernard Reynolds to do that prospecting. And it wasn't going really well. There was smallpox was rampant at the time. There was bandits and warlords out and about. It was hot. Temperatures would soar past 110 degrees regularly. So it wasn't going well. But by early 1908, Darcy had sunk about 500,000 pounds into this venture looking for oil. And literally got to the point where, like, all right, we're folding up shop. Like, clearly there's nothing here. And he basically telegraphed Reynolds, the engineer, saying, all right, dude, just like break everything down, send everything off to be shipped back. We're done. Like, we're just folding the towel. We're gonna throw our hat in the ring here.
We've all been there at some point, right? And
we've been there. And Reynolds delayed following the order, so he received the notice from his employer. Reynolds said, I'm going to sit on this for a minute. Just sit on this. I'm not going to respond. Let's just wait. So he delayed following the orders, and in a stroke of luck, he found oil shortly thereafter, on the 26th of May, 1908, in the Musjid il Salyman oil field, which is, I think, still used to this day. I think they're still pouring
They must
oil
have made
from
a
that.
ton of money off of that, huh?
Yeah, and then so then from from there, they found oil in Persia, and then that got everyone else on the bandwagon. That's when people started looking around in Iraq, and then eventually Saudi Arabia, and now these places are run by oil. I mean, I've heard people in Saudi Arabia don't work too much; they're still kind of living off the fat of the land, the fat of the oil. And so this was the first major discovery of oil in the Middle East.
Man, that'd be sweet. It's striking oil, wouldn't it? Just put a derrick up; it does all the work for you, huh? I'll tell you, just how things work in the world. It seems like whoever controls the energy source holds all the power. It seems like,
A modern country in particular, any time. And I mean, if you own all the horses, if the Ottomans owned all the horses and the Byzantines didn't have any, well, it's not an energy supply, but it's certainly unless they eat
nice
them.
Comparison that fell in on itself.
You know what I mean?
Oh man, yeah. Well, that's a pretty good one. Striking oil in the Middle East.
I would say almost one of the most consequential. Effectively, even like the Saudi Arabia, it was basically a backwater. Really, I mean, there was the Ottoman Empire was on its last legs. I mean, they fell pretty hard after 500 years of taking that W. Yeah, there was really nothing there. I mean, it was just desert, and then by them striking oil, I mean that. Overnight, I mean, it became, not overnight, maybe it took a longer than that, but the Middle East became important. And as the wars came on, then oil became, well, how do you fight these wars? And then, Hitler tried going after the Romanian oil fields and eventually tried to get into the Middle East too at one point. Super consequential,
All right. Well, do you want to get onto this card game real quick?
Sure.
All right. I'll go first. I picked sports and recreation as my first category. So the rules are there's 6 questions. If you get at least 3 of the 6 questions on the card, you keep the card and the category is finished. First to complete all 6 categories wins the game. Right?
Let it begin.
Let the games begin.
Okay. Alrighty. Sports and rec. In martial arts, what does the acronym TKO mean?
Total knockout.
Technical knockout.
Technical. I don't know why I knew that. I don't know why, but I always thought it was total.
Because you think you're in Mortal Kombat or life is Tekken?
Finish him.
Who won the first 2 FIFA Women's World Player of the Year awards?
What year was that?
I don't know. Doesn't say.
Who won the first 2 women's
FIFA Women's World Player of the Year
World
awards?
Player of the Year. I mean, I only know I know a handful of American women team. I assume they're not American. I mean, my guess would be
5.
I mean, my first guess is
3.
Mia Hamm.
Correct.
Yes. Really?
Yeah.
Nice. I was thinking her or a chick who took her shirt off. The girl who took her shirt off to celebrate the World Cup.
Rapahoe?
No.
No?
Brandy,
no, you're right.
Brandy Chastain.
Oh, right. Oops. Which country won the first Women's FIFA World Cup?
Germany.
Incorrect. The United States.
I was going to guess that, but I didn't want to be obvious. Shoot.
Who was the first Latino elected to baseball's Hall of Fame?
Roberto Clemente?
Yeah, that's right. Which Spanish city is famous for its annual running of the bulls?
Madrid?
Pamplona.
Dang. What do I have? I got 2 right.
2 right.
I got 2 right. This is the 6th question. This is big. This is big.
Wait, how many do you need to get right to get the card?
At least half. At least 3.
That's what we're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Which college basketball team did Michael Jordan play for?
Oh, shoot. This is a tough one. The University of North Carolina Tar Heels.
That's right. It just says, University of North Carolina Tar Heels. You got it. So you
Nice.
got the card.
I get the card.
So you get
I
the
picked
card.
an easy one to start. I picked an easy one to start. That's I had nothing to say.
Why say anything? Let your actions do the talking. All right.
All right, what category do you want?
I'll go geography and landmarks.
Again?
I want to get it.
So boring.
I want to get it in the whole. I want to just get
That's
it
going to be
out of the way.
That's going to be my last one because I'm never going to get these. Never in a million years, unless I cheat.
Well, if they ask you where was oil first struck in the Middle East, you'll know. Now,
I actually don't know if I would know. What's the answer? Did you say where? In the Middle
I
East?
said where? I said Persia,
Oh.
modern day Iran. Okay. Let's just
As
keep
soon
it
as you
moving.
said striking oil, I thought of the Beverly Hillbillies, so that's my fault, I guess.
Where?
All right. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
What city is nicknamed the Motor City?
Detroit.
Home of the Motor City madman himself.
That's what came to your head when you read that question?
Yeah, that's why I laughed.
Nice.
What was your answer?
I hope you listen to our podcast one day. Detroit.
Which city, the current capital of Louisiana, saw the British defeated by Spain at its namesake battle during the American Revolution?
Baton Rouge.
That's correct. I would have gotten that one wrong too. Which college, founded in 1701 in New Haven, Connecticut, is the U.S.'s third oldest institution of higher learning?
Yale.
Correct.
Got the card. Now I'm just on bonus.
Now you're on bonus time. In which U.S. state did Nat Turner's rebellion occur? Well, now that's a topic of discussion next week.
North Carolina? What was it?
Virginia, your favorite state.
I guessed it. That's what I had in my
You
head.
know what that is? Nat
I know about
Turner's
the Nat
rebellion.
Turner Rebellion. Yeah, sure.
I guess we'll have to talk about it next week.
Slave revolt killed some people.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. In which U.S. state is the source of the Mississippi River?
Minnesota?
That is correct. From which language are the from which U.S. from which language are the U.S. state names Florida, Colorado, Montana, and Nevada derived?
Seminole?
No.
Wait, what was the question? Which who?
From which language are the U.S. state names Florida, Colorado, Montana, and Nevada derived?
Cherokee? Is that not a language? Just the people?
Spanish. I thought you would have gotten that one.
No, half
with
of the states are
Florida.
named after or like Indian Native American names.
Like what?
Delaware?
Good point. Wisconsin or no? Milwaukee?
Massachusetts?
Milwaukee, as Cooper taught
Alice
us.
Cooper? Yes. Darn. So I got the card. What are we going to do? What's the bonus if you get all 6? That has to count for something. Like, it's like your bonus round. It's like, well, if I get all 6 on music, I know I'm going to get 2 cards. Like, is there going to be something we're going to do with that?
I guess we'll have to think about that one.
Okay. Stay tuned, fans.
Well, it's a long one.
It just flies with these. I tell you what. Maybe not for our fans listening, but they really do go quick. They go incredibly fast.
One of our fans, when we first started this thing, I think I told you. Actually, it was Andrew S. who was on the podcast last week. His first thing, I was saying, like, yeah, I think we're going to start a podcast. And I'm like, I feel like as long as we're just going to talk for 45 minutes to an hour about a specific topic in history, and we're just going to kind of go for it, see how it goes. And his first comment was, it's going to be really hard for you guys to fill out 45 minutes. He said 45 minutes is a lot longer than you think, which is like, couldn't be the more opposite of the actual situation.
I guess time just flies when you're talking with your friends, right?
That's true. Yep.
The more you know.
Yeah. But is there anything else that you want to add to this episode? So what we talked about Adolf Eichmann and the trial of the century. We talked about the fall of the Byzantine Empire. Also, could also be considered the end of the Roman Empire.
Correct.
And then we talked about striking oil in Persia, modern day Iran.
That's right. And we played cards, and we both got a card for anyone who's stattiness.
Yep. I think it was a full episode. Hopefully I can find something funnier for next week for this week in history. I mean, that wasn't
maybe
funny.
You shouldn't have started it. Maybe I should have went first.
A lot of this week in history is all based on World War II. It feels like something happened during World War II or related to World War II like every day.
Well, I mean, there was an ongoing war for 5 years. I would think there's going to be something every day. I just think the arc of time, it's going to be a little more. When you go back 500 years, you're going to have like one day that's worth actually noting, because maybe that's the only day that the scholars of the time or historians of the time actually took note of.
Alrighty, well, that's it for this week. We'll see. Everyone have a good. This should come out before Memorial Day, so I hope everyone's has a good Memorial Day. We'll be back next week, God willing.
We will be
as the
here.
United States Empire doesn't fall like the Byzantines in 1452.
We're not being sieged by anyone. Although some Republicans might say otherwise, but we're okay. I think we'll still be here in a week.
We're good. We're good for now. All right.
All right, gang. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy.
Thank you. Bye.
And we say bye-bye.